What's frustrated people is that I have not been able to force Congress to implement every aspect of what I said in 2008. Well, it turns out that our founders designed a system that makes it more difficult to bring about change than I would like sometimes.
Well, welcome back to the Savage Nation. There's been a concerted effort on the part of Obama, Ruth Bad Girl Bader Ginsburg, the head of the ACLU and now on the U.S. Supreme Court for too many years. And now the New York Times is chiming in, saying that the Constitution is out of date, it's old, it guarantees a few rights, and that it's time to change the U.S. Constitution. Nothing that is done by Obama is done by himself. He has minions in the media, minions in the judicial, and minions elsewhere, which is, of course, okay. However, it's not okay when they go after our founding documents, especially the U.S. Constitution. As I said to you, this is the most important story you've ever probably heard in the history of your life. You have a president who is a dictator in the making. He'd like to be a full dictator without any powers, without freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom to assembly. And he says so nakedly. He says, point blank, that he can't force Congress to do what he wants because the founding fathers designed a document, a system, that makes it difficult to bring about the change that he would like sometime, without even understanding that they envisioned a petty dictator like him emerging in the American system, without even understanding that it was a man like he that they feared would come to possess the presidency one day. And not to be outdone is the senile, virulent, far-left radical Ruth Bader Ginsburg. We played her speech last week, telling Egyptians not to look to the U.S. Constitution, but to look elsewhere, such as South Africa. And then today it gets worse. New York Times runs a broadside against the Constitution. And I'm going to read it to you. They say that the Constitution has seen better days. Sure, it's the nation's founding document and sacred text. This is written by some creature called Adam Liptak. I don't know who he is, but I can only assume that his ancestors fled the Tsar of Russia or some other area in the Pale of Settlement. They fled specifically so that they would be protected by the U.S. Constitution, and now their subterranean grandson, Adam Liptak, is doing the bidding of the petty dictator by saying the Constitution has seen better days, and it's the oldest written national constitution still in force, but its influence is waning. They say that the Constitution is old and that it's time to move on. And they go to certain other subterraneans in the legal profession. They go to professors, don't you know, at various universities who tell us that the Constitution has seen better days. In an interview, somebody by the name of Professor Law, unto itself that's a joke, I don't know who that creature might be, Professor Law identified a central reason for the trend against the U.S. Constitution. And he says the availability of newer, sexier, and more powerful operating systems in the constitutional marketplace. The jerk says nobody wants to copy Windows 3.1, he said in a television interview. Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, allegedly of the U.S. Supreme Court, but really a subterranean from the ACLU, said that to the Egyptians, I would not look to the U.S. Constitution if I were drafting a Constitution in the year 2012. She recommended instead the Constitution of South Africa. The rights guaranteed by the American Constitution are by international standards frozen in amber, says one of these left-wing fanatics. As somebody by the name of Sanford Levinson wrote, whoever the heck he might be, another one who no doubt had ancestors who fled the Tsar of Russia, but now that he's awakened to the greatest freedom in the history of the world, Levinson, protected by a tenure system, protected by the Constitution, wrote a paper called Our Undemocratic Constitution. And this creature Levinson wrote, the U.S. Constitution is the most difficult to amend of any constitution currently existing in the world today. Parenthesis, Yugoslavia used to hold that title, but Yugoslavia did not work out. Then he says, other nations routinely trade in their constitutions for wholesale, replacing them on average every 19 years. He says, the Constitution is out of step. I'm going back now to the other subterranean, Adam Liptak of the allegedly of the New York Times, saying that the U.S. Constitution is out of step with the rest of the world in failing to protect. Listen to this. Here comes the punchline. Boys and girls, please stop. Listen to why they're attacking the Constitution. But the U.S. Constitution, he writes, is out of step with the rest of the world in failing to protect, at least in so many words, a right to travel, the presumption of innocence, and entitlement to food, education, and health care. In other words, because the U.S. Constitution does not guarantee a socialist or communist view of the world, it is therefore useless. They then go on to say that it protects the right to bear arms, and that's no good. It says only 2% of the world's constitutions protect, as the Second Amendment does, a right to bear arms. Do you have any idea what is going on here? Do you have any idea that we have a Leninist, power-mad Leninist in the White House, Barack Obama? He has very powerful friends in the Socialist International Movement, such as those at the Old York Times, a well-known Stalinist front newspaper going back to the 1930s. It's always been Stalinist. And even on the Supreme Court, they want the Constitution to be rewritten. And so, therefore, I have a question I can ask you, but you know what the question's going to be already, so why ask it of you? Why should I ask you a question that's so obvious? You have a Leninist who is creating trickle-down tyranny, the title of a book of mine coming out April 3rd. My birthday's March 31st, by the way. And I'm sure that you're going to want to see a document as to what this tyrant is doing, has done, and wants to do to you. But if you want to comment on the U.S. Constitution, the phone number is 1-800-449-8255. 1-800-449-8255. Shall I ask you the question to make it easy for my millions of listeners around the nation and around the world? Is it time to trade in the U.S. Constitution, or are you happy with it? Do you agree with the radical leftists who hate the U.S. Constitution and want to change it to something approximating that of South Africa, that we should throw away the U.S. Constitution because it's set in amber and it's no good anymore?
What we have been able to do is move in the right direction. And what I'm just going to keep on doing is plodding away, very persistent. And you know what? One of the things about being president is you get better as time goes on.
Plodding away. Now, did he say plodding away or plotting away? Very important difference, those two letters. Of course, in his case, we know he means plotting away, because that's what this man does. He plots. He plots away to get rid of the U.S. Constitution so he can have absolute power. And as Lord Acton wrote, power corrupts. Obama has power, and he's corrupt, in my opinion. But he does not yet have absolute power, and so therefore he is not absolutely corrupt. He has not been corrupted absolutely. But he has power, which has corrupted him. There's no question about it. The man is savoring the power that he has. He's the most powerful man in the world. Make no mistake about it. He's now turning the FBI against Rupert Murdoch. He's now turning the Justice Department against Rupert Murdoch. I mean, I don't know whether Murdoch's News Corp did anything worthy of an FBI investigation, but they're going after him because News Corp owns Fox News. Fox News being, I would say, a moderately conservative news outlet, which is what it is, does a very good job. But apparently even that modicum of dissension against this left-wing administration is too much for them. Now, if you want to live in Syria, then you let the government get out of control more so than it already has. I don't understand how you liberals could be arguing to change the U.S. Constitution when you understand better than I do what might happen. Why is it that you want to get rid of the U.S. Constitution? What is it that you want that you don't have? If you have the freedom to do virtually anything you want, for example, today, your friends in the Ninth Circuit Court of Schlemiels in San Francisco, as you well know, they're just left-wing lawyers who got on black robes, took the will of hundreds of thousands of people who said no to gay marriage in California and basically threw it in the garbage. They said that we, in the Ninth Circuit Court of Schlemiels, have more power than all the people of the state of California put together. The hell with you. We have the power to throw out your vote, and we just did so. And they said gay marriage is good, and that anyone who votes against it is committing an unconstitutional act. So there you have a constitution, don't you? And it's used by you guys in black robes whenever you want. So why would you want to throw out an instrument that you use at your convenience and dismiss when it's not at your convenience? You mean you don't have enough power yet? So why do you want to get rid of the Constitution? What is this? Why would a true liberal want to get rid of the U.S. Constitution? I could see a fanatic progressive, meaning a communist, wanting to get rid of the Constitution because they hate the people and fear the people. But I don't understand how a true liberal would want to dismiss the greatest instrument in the history of the world. Why?